What is up? If you're watching this, that means you got another day. Guys, I'm out here in Orange County, California at the Gearbox, and we're going to be doing a video on how I afford this 2012 V10 R8. And I'm excited to do this video because this has got to be one of the easiest, most affordable supercars on the planet. I meant it when I said that I bought the cheapest supercar on the planet, so I'm gonna break down exactly what my costs are, payments, insurance, all that good stuff, how I secured it, yes, it is in all my name, and how I afford it month to month. Now, before we start in the R8, I do want to mention that the Mustang is now completely paid off. This was a $15,000 car with about $15,000 to $20,000 worth of mods, and it is fully paid off. The insurance is about $100 a month, and the registration is about $350 a year. So this car is very cheap to operate at this point, and that is why I'm not selling it or getting rid of it. Now to the R8. Now, before I go too far into this, I want to make sure that you guys know that I'm not a financial advisor, and this is not official financial advice. This is just how I afforded this car. So if anything that I'm doing helps you, run with it. Now, a lot of supercar owners don't own their vehicles outright. Some do, some don't. It really just depends on what your financial goals are and where you want to leverage your cash. That's the big thing that we're going to be talking about, because when I was growing up, I was always taught to buy cars in cash, which is why the Mustang was bought in cash and the V6 I had before it was bought in cash. Now, when you're buying a $15,000 car or a $10,000 car, it's very different than buying an $83,000 car or a car that's more expensive. It's much better, in my opinion, to get a car like this with a lower APR than the average return that I can get investing that money in the market and tying my money up elsewhere, rather than having $83,000 tied up in essentially a depreciating asset. Now let's break down what that means. The average return in the market, look over the average of the lifespan of the economy, is 8 to 10% per year, which means that if your money is in the stock market, some kind of similar investment like an index fund or an IRA, you can expect that money to grow at 8 to 10% interest per year, averaged across a long period of time, let's just say 5 or 10 years, because obviously the economy this year isn't going to give you an 8 to 10% return, whereas in previous years around COVID, it might have been a lot more. It averages out. My APR on this car is 6.19%, which is lower than the 8 to 10% interest return I could have with my money in the market. So I'd rather have more money in the market earning more interest than the interest rate that I'm paying on this car. Let's just say I have $83,000 to buy this car outright. I still wouldn't do it. I still would take out a loan. I still would pay that 6.19% interest, take the rest of the money or the majority of it and put it in the market and let it grow at 8 to 10%, because after 72 months or however long my loan payment is, I will earn more money having money in the market and slowly pulling it out to put it in this vehicle. Now, there's a lot more moving parts to this, because obviously you're not going to tie up all $83,000 or whatever it is you have in 100% of the market, because the market fluctuates from year to year and you pay taxes whenever you pull it out. So to try to keep this as simple as possible, the bottom line is I don't want to have all my money tied up in this car, so I secured it with a 0 down payment. So I went and took this car off the lot. All I had to do was get approved for the loan, and then my first payment hit on the 15th of, I think, March, because I originally got approved in February when I bought the car, and then it continues to bill me every 15th of the month. The exact car payment is about $1,500 per month. I also had a strategy to take out a larger loan than the actual price of the car. My loan was for $86,000, so that way I could accommodate any small things that I have to adjust on the car. I used some of that money to fix broken things on this car immediately, and then have it set up with my bank to auto deduct each month. You just have to make sure that you have the money in the bank for the auto payment, or you run into all kinds of trouble down the line. On top of that, I also pay my own insurance on this car. Everything is done through USAA. I was able to secure the loan through USAA, and I used my own credit score for that as well. It's very important to have a very high credit score if you're going to get a supercar like this, because you want to make sure that you have that APR as low as possible. The APR is basically the interest rate that you're paying on the loan that you're taking out to own the car. My credit score is 770. I would recommend having a credit score at least over 700 before you get a supercar. There's a lot of different factors that determine that APR, like what your job is, what your income is, how long you've had that job, but they basically come up with a percentage on that loan, and your credit score plays a huge part in it. How you get a higher credit score, there's a lot of ways that you can jump into this, but bottom line is I've never missed a credit card payment. I don't have a lot of credit cards open. I don't have a lot of missing balances. I pay them off at the end of each month, and I have a long history of using the same credit card with the same bank. Before I bought this car, I had absolutely zero debt. Now, there is ways to leverage debt to be able to make more money, and that's something that I'm learning more about now, but at least for right now, this is a good example of leveraging debt to make more money, because this car has opened a tremendous amount of doors for me. It has allowed me to make more money. It has opened the door for me to leverage an LLC and then write off a lot of the expenses on this car. So in a way, I am using debt to make more money. Now, the car, obviously, it was a dream to own it, but it's a hell of a marketing tool. I need to use the term own loosely because I don't own this car outright yet. I'm not even close to it. I've only made a few payments on it, but the important thing is that I'm affording it. So each month, I'm not actually living paycheck to paycheck. Before I do anything, I take 10% out of 100% of my income and immediately give it to one of two places. Any kind of charity or organization or thing that this guy is running, Sebastian, I highly suggest you go give him a follow. And if not him, Mosaic. 10% gets donated to charity, because if you're not giving what you're earning, what's the point of earning in the first place? The second thing I do is I take 20% of what's left over and I put it in an account that I don't touch. It's a savings account in a separate bank account that is only set aside for taxes, because I've been on the side of tax resolution, helping people get out of trouble with the IRS. Pay your taxes. So I make sure that at least 20% is set aside to be able to pay those taxes on top of the savings that I have as an emergency fund. After that, all of my bills are paid, which includes this car payment, my $250 a month insurance payment that covers both vehicles, any gas bills that I have on the car, and believe me, at $1 a mile, the gas adds up on this vehicle, any other repair costs or things that have to do with maintaining this vehicle, which thank goodness to my sponsor, Voodoo Autosport, for helping me with the labor on that side, really cuts down on the cost of owning this supercar. I still do have to buy all the parts myself, and I still do spend a tremendous amount of time wrenching on this car myself, including today. Majority of today was spent swapping out a fuel filter, fixing the side blades, a gas cap issue, and another noise that it was making. So once those bills are paid, any money that's left over, I might take a couple $100s and put it in the market, like I said, an index fund or something like that. Do make sure to set aside a little bit of money so I can contribute up to max out $6,000 in my IRA each year, because that is money that isn't taxed and it goes into a fund that compounds interest and is basically setting me up for retirement in the future. And then anything left over is placed in an emergency fund or spent on fun things like going on the Longtail Rally. Speaking of which, I could not do this alone. There are sponsors involved in this vehicle. My biggest sponsor obviously is Voodoo Autosport, because they're the ones that employ me, and they're also the ones that help me work on the car and save me in labor costs in trying to keep it maintained. Now, this is a perfect trade-off for them, because the car has more than paid for its own labor and the number of clients I've been able to bring into Voodoo. My next biggest sponsor is the Longtail Rally, tied in with Bilstein, Next Level, who wrapped it, and Vossen, HE Tuning, and Ticket Dismissers, and the other people that step in to help offset the cost of owning this car. And the other forms of income I have is through social media, Instagram Reels, TikToks, YouTube ads, and brand deals that I do, where a brand pays me a certain amount of money to make a certain post on one of my platforms. Brand deals are fewer and far between now, as I place most of my time into building the Voodoo Autosport channels, but every now and then one will pop up. So there's not a ton of money left over at the end of each month, which is why I'm spending a lot of time in my off time to learn more about real estate and how to create more passive income, because I don't want to be in an R8 for the rest of my life. I want to step up to other cars like an MC20. I do want to stress the fact that this car is completely supported by my name, my credit score, my bank, my insurance, my loan, and my paychecks. There isn't any sugar daddy, there's no trust fund, there's no real emergency fund. Like if I blew up the engine on this car would literally be on blocks. There is no real backup for a major catastrophe, but did get me in the car, and to me that was the most important thing that I wanted. So I was willing to take the risk involved with being able to get in a car probably a little sooner than I should, but the important thing to know is that I am doing this by myself with the help of sponsors that I'm providing enough value to for it to make sense for them to sponsor me in the ways that they are sponsoring me. With the majority of my sponsors simply just trading services for the services that I provide, again, to offset the costs, such as traffic tickets, tires, wheels, brakes, things like that. So I want to note that everything that is sponsored on the car, I still had to pay 50% or more of the retail value of that item to be able to get it on the car. These sponsorships are growing down the line, so as I go, I'll get better deals. But the only thing that was fully sponsored at no cost to me was my center exit, which was designed and built by Voodoo Design, so shout out to them. Everything else on the car, including the tune, the carbon, the wheels, the tires, the wrap, the paint, the repairs, and too many other things to name, I had to pay a big percent of what the retail cost was, except for my Bilstein coilovers. Those were fully sponsored. Huge shout out to Bilstein. And I think this is a good time to announce that this will be Bilstein's official feature build at SEMA this year. You are looking at a SEMA car, which is incredible, because last year I went to SEMA for the first time. I was following someone around. I had no idea what I was doing. And now my car is wrapped in Bilstein's colors, going to have a Bilstein livery. And then I'm going to go represent them at the biggest trade show essentially in the country. I don't know if it's big in the world, but it's huge. SEMA's amazing. So you will see this car there. And Bilstein has got to be one of the best set of coilovers that you could put on a car. So whether you own an R8 or a Mustang or something similar, I'm sure they have something for you. Go and find a dealer for Bilstein, and I highly recommend putting a set of coilovers on their car, because we were able to dial these in and get them properly set for the Longtail Rally. We got them set for Pikes Peak. We did lots of track time with them. I drag race in them. I absolutely love what Bilstein is doing. Now, my game plan for this car is to try to make money on it, not just in its marketing abilities, but in what I'm able to invest in the car to make it something that I could sell for more than what I bought it for down the line. I waited to find a car that had candy red wheels on it, that sat around for several months and dropped in price and got below the average price that this year R8 was selling for. And I bought the most reliable platform because I couldn't afford for something like a transmission or an engine to blow on this vehicle. So some things we're considering is a manual swap or a twin turbo, already with coilovers and aftermarket wheels and a brake upgrade and repairing all the things on it that need to be repaired. The car's value should go up, even though I do continue to stack miles on it. Now, if I'm able to at least break even on the car, then it was a W. And honestly, I've already accepted the fact that if I lose money on the car, it's still worth it because it makes me happy to drive and own it. And at the end of the day, the whole point of owning the supercar was to essentially do it by myself. When I say do it by myself, again, I do need the support of my sponsors. I do not want that to be gently pushed aside, but there are no handouts in this equation, because if I was driving around a car that I didn't feel like I was truly earning and I wasn't getting sponsors through actual hard work in ways that I'm providing value, where it is an even exchange or me providing more value than what I'm getting in return, then I don't want the supercar. There's no point, because a lot of people don't know this, but my parents are well off enough for me to have gotten this car when I first moved to LA and just let them make the payments. Whether or not they would have is another story, but my point is that I didn't want to get here on someone else's paychecks. I wanted to get here on my paychecks. With that said, I hope you guys continue to follow this channel and this journey as I move up from V6 Mustang to V10 supercar and then whatever comes next, because the whole point of the channel is to show you guys a journey of somebody that moved to LA, took a risk on a dream, and is making it on their own without taking shortcuts, without taking handouts. And please also follow my top two sponsors, Voodoo Autosport and the Longtail Rally, because they're the ones that are carrying the majority of the investment on my side, and I'm also invested heavily in what they do as well. Remember, I drop videos all the time, guys, and I'll catch you at the next episode. Peace.
I might lie to you just to get through the night with you. Hope that's alright. Know you lie